Here we are, PVB on the blue side, Flash Wolves on the red. Once again, both teams 0-2 after difficult starts. Will we see more from the Flash Wolves today as an unsurprising
Too
bomb?
young to die.
One death already in the game, brutal. Earliest first blood.
Yeah, very, very early. But, you know, one of the things that really stands out to me when I'm looking over the side of Flash Wolves is how poor their siege is, how much of a brawly comp this is. This is 4 melee champions and a very short-range marksman. This is fight it out, engage, engage, engage. And we're going to see if they're going to be able to do that, because this is the kind of lineup that looks amazing from ahead and awful if you fall behind. There's very little wave clear. There's, you know, not really a lot of separate win conditions besides just run at them and hope you win.
Yeah, I agree. Whereas for Phong Vu Buffalo, they have a little bit more options. They can play the 1-3-1. You can send Ryze off to one side lane, the Aatrox off to the other. They both have teleport, so it's very easy for them to converge. They have a very solid mid-game spike at around 2 items, so they can look to force fights then. So I don't know if PVB need to be aggressive in the early game, but if they are going to be aggro in the early game, then I want to see plays up towards the top side of the map. Try and put the Akali behind, play around the Aatrox, who is a strong laner, and utilize some of the mobility that Rek'Sai has to get Zeros ahead up towards the top side of the map.
Yeah, it'll be so interesting to see if they're able to do that, because, you know, certainly you can see the 1-3-1 on the side of PvP. Flash Wolves do have double TP on their solo, so they can look to match that. But, you know, the wave clear certainly a really big thing. Yes, Silas can Q-max, but this is not the kind of wave clear that you're wanting to depend on if you fall behind. And I do think solo lane advantages are going to become a really big deal, giving you access to those neutral objectives, where I think both these teams are going to be wanting to fight it out.
And already a small duo lane advantage for the side of Flash Wolves. They got to go to lane first, did not leash for their jungler, so we'll get priority over this wave. Pal and Big Cora, though, still not afraid to trade, still happy to use the concussive blows from Braum to try to fire back, but Halo Blades Callista can be so oppressive.
Yeah, I really like Halo Blades Callista for the laning phase, largely because it allows you to get a lot of Ren stacks out very, very quickly, which means that you can go for those very short, very punchy kind of trades because of the amount of extra burst that you can get. So the Lucian Braum have to be careful of these early exchanges, but note the exhaust being run by Pallet. Very aware of the amount of kill threat on the side of Flash Wolves, will mitigate a lot of early potential plays.
Yeah, and I mean, if you overextend on that Nautilus, if you do dive too far forward, there is certainly the potential for the Lucian Braum to turn those fights around on you. Nautilus is really not that tanky once the Aftershock does expire. The exhaust can help you to buy some time. Very effective against Callista, so will be interesting to see how that lane is playing out.
For now, we keep our eyes on Boogie as he moves down to the blue buff. We'll get level 3 soon. Can look to pressure it out on the bottom side of the map. Rek'Sai already taking that bot side. Scuttlecraft, though, puts him in a comfortable position in terms of vision control. May make it a bit more difficult to find a solid gank path. But that Xin, you talked about it. If he finds those early ganks, this champion very quickly can take over a game.
Now, I will say, we expected brawling. With 3 minutes in, no one has died yet. So we're just a little disappointed. But of course, junglers already making their move. You can see Boogie making his way towards the bot side, as we expected. They want to try and get this duo ahead. But PvP, very aware that a gank could be coming through, trying to play towards the back end of the wave. But this wave is actually slowly pushing towards the bot lane of Flash Wolves.
Yeah, it's a very risky spot, honestly, you know, for PvP when the lane is pushing away. But here comes Boogie.
showC stepping forward. The dash up from Pallet is there. Unbreakable to block it. Pallet even willing to step forward in the exchange. Well played by PvP. They knew the gank was coming and played around it perfectly.
Pallet holding on to his W, waiting for the hook to come out from showC, then uses it to dodge out from the crowd control, and they're able to get out of what could have been a very sticky situation. So now Zuhao makes his way towards the bot side of the map.
And all this time that is being invested, you know, by the Xin Zhao, by Boogie, you've already seen Zuhao is up a couple camps. He had already gone back to base, picked up the Chilling Smite. So, you know, he is kind of going to be outpacing that pace that is being set here by the Xin Zhao, and he's going to have his own opportunities to look for those ganks on the bottom side of the map, or try to pressure mid perhaps as well, where there is really solid gank setup here from the Ryze with that Rune Prison.
Have to see, though, what else can he get done? I think that the scary thing about me for Bougie and this Xin Zhao is that we've seen PvP run the Xin before themselves. Meliodas has tried it, and when it doesn't go well in the early game, things tend to fall apart very quickly, and you can see Pal and Big Coro already willing to step into that jungle, already willing to do what they have to limit the impact here. And normally a very terrifying early game champion outside of Boogie can't really threaten this bottom side.
PvP, though, utilizing the bot lane pressure that they have extremely well. They moved up to try and set some vision, but now Big Coro could be in some danger as Pallet soaks up the damage.
Aftershock has been used, though. Have to be careful, as you mentioned, once the tankiness falls off. Big Core and Pow just making great use of the concussive blows there to disengage.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you throw up the door on the side of the Braum, that slows it down. You have Guardian, you have all of that kind of damage absorption, and as long as Big Core is behind the Braum and being able to proc the concussive blows, that plus press the attack is making those kind of trades back very, very effective. But you know, Flash Wolves did get a base off already. It's the early tier 2 boots upgrade here for Betty, which is pretty standard on the Callista. You know, it does increase the amount of distance you can actually hop with those auto attacks, and you know, is going to be pretty effective, especially if you are going aggressive and chasing down your opponents.
But already you're seeing a bit of a CS discrepancy here. Will balance out a bit as Callista catches the wave, but you can see that Big Coral has been completely comfortable on the bottom side of the map, despite initial expectations for a lot of early ganks. Just getting that one fumble does put him in a comfortable position to get a bit of lifesteal, stay safe in this lane, and just wait out the Callista.
So I will say that looking and thinking a little more about Flash Wolves' composition, I do think they have, with the Sylas and Akali, they do kind of have some scaling options. You know, we talked a bit about how PVB have this 1-3-1, but when I think about it, like Akali actually very strong in a side lane, like, especially at 3 items. Some pro players consider her one of, if not the strongest side lane duelist because of the amount of mobility and burst that she has, and you can never trade back against her, right, as long as her Shroud is up. And on top of that, Sylas, once he hits that level 16 mark, like, he scales very well with cooldowns. Once he's sitting at like 40-45% CDR, he can just keep those rotations going. He has a lot of sustain. The shields make it extremely difficult to outtrade him as well. So like, if this game goes on long from the side of Flash Wolves, why it is not ideal, because obviously you're running things like the Callista that becomes harder to execute the longer the game goes on, they still kind of have some fallback options.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, both sides are going to have their options in the later stages of the game. Certainly PVB will be looking to match that side lane pressure with that of their Ryze, who scales incredibly well. But, you know, it's a good kind of mix of strength. Both Rek'Sai and the Xin Zhao do certainly fall off towards later stages. You know, Lucian and Callista also often struggle, especially against all these kind of bruisers and melee champions. You're relatively short range, so it's pretty easy for them to get up on top of you. And then it does become, you know, somewhat about how the supports are going to be able to peel for and protect those AD carries, to be able to be that front line and create space for them to get damage.
Small engage in the mid lane, Null. Gonna throw a few skill shots down and try to trade back. If he steps forward, Buji will most likely just try to come in on this gank, but people they're gonna stop rather from getting any closer, and both junglers waiting, ready to go in for the 2v2, but neither one gonna pull the trigger and force.
So just a lot of patience coming out from both junglers right now. Not quite the early game that we were expecting. We're expecting a couple more ganks. While a couple of attempts have been made, nothing has already translated so far. As we see a couple more trades happen up towards the top side of the map. Hanabi does have the ultimate, but so does Zeros. So nothing going to come off the back of that.
And for PVB, we've been concerned. When the game starts to slow down, they don't look quite as explosive, they don't look quite as confident. We saw it yesterday in their game versus Team Liquid. When they played slow, they got outclassed. When they played fast versus IG, they were going toe-to-toe in so many of those exchanges.
Yeah, it's definitely the case, and I think as a result, a lot of people are hoping that PVB does pick up the pace and try to play it a little bit faster. It did feel like that's more their wheelhouse. When you look at VCS as a region as well, it is one of the bloodiest, if not the bloodiest regions in the world too. They played extremely fast throughout play-ins as far as, you know, being willing to take fights and trade kills, and it feels like that is where they excel. So you kind of want to see them play that style, because Flash Wolves is this team that likes to sit back, that likes to get Betty to those team fights where he's going to be so good.
And now the level 6s are coming through for PvP. We could just see that happen. Do they want to try and force the fight? No, they don't. They're going to take an objective and they're going to walk away, Jen.
Who wants objectives?
Who wants those objectives, really? There's even a Cloud Drake on the board right now, so you don't expect a lot of priority to be going on between these two teams. But, like, this is kind of where the concerns come from, right? Like, they're slowing down the game. Many analysts perceive that this team doesn't know how to play the slow macro game. They're much more about the, let's get a lot of kills, let's go for a lot of fights. But so far, they're trying to use their pressure to gain advantages, get deep vision, and they're taking their time.
And they're doing well. You know, they are, you know, even a little bit ahead on gold over Flash Wolves. So certainly I don't think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on them to get something done. And they may be able to prove a lot of people wrong by winning this style of game. If you can beat Flash Wolves at kind of what is their own style, I think that is certainly a nice statement to make.
Rather though, caught between two members. He's gonna have to back off Boogie here as well, but 400 gold difference already between the junglers. Boogie trying to force a lot of those early ganks has cost him dearly in early CS, so the Rek'Sai sitting quite comfortably at this stage. And no really explosive plays yet. It feels like we've been so close. So many people have stared each other in the face, and both sides have just kind of decided to back off.
Yeah, and it does feel like sometimes when you get in these situations where both these teams are sitting at the bottom of the standings, no one wants to make that mistake that is really going to cost them another loss. They know they need to start picking up wins here, and perhaps as a result, they are going to play a little bit more risk-averse and trying to kind of depend on getting those more guaranteed plays.
Yeah, and as Flash Wolves as a team, that very much fits into their wheelhouse for now. They're quite content with how things are going. Even the Callista, even though she's a very early game focused champion, I feel like at 2 items, she's very, very strong. So I don't think that they need to be concerned as of yet, as we see Hanabi going for an all-in top side.
Uses both stacks of the ultimate. Traded, though, for the Aatrox ultimate. You see the Xin Zhao backing off. Zhuhao is in the top side of the map, so have to be careful on the side of Hanabi, but at the end of the day, just an ult-for-ult trade.
Yeah, and Hanabi's going to be really hard to take down here. Akali is so evasive, and both the Rek'Sai as well as this Aatrox deal physical damage, rush the early Seekers to give you a lot of safety there.
But surprise, the bottom lane is on the top side of the map. Pallet is able to land a concussive blows. The knockout comes out. Pallet not able to connect, but it does force Hanabi to backstep. Now visible on the map. The exhaust coming out. One stack going to be there. Big Coral going to use the heal to get closer. 2 taps. Piercingly lit there on the top side. The TP coming in, but it might be too little too late. Rather, has the Rek'Sai ultimate. Could look to extend the play, but don't think it's the right choice. Zhuhao on the top side as well.
And a quick rotation from the Phong Buffalo allow them to find first blood onto Hanabi, who used all of his skills to try and get that shutdown onto Zeros. Because of the trade of ultimates, neither of them was available, which then enabled Pallet to go for the all-in. Now, admittedly, 3 summoner spells were used in getting that kill, so hopefully Phong Buffalo can convert it into a lot of plates so that that wasn't...
Oh, Pallet.
4 summoner spells were used to try and get that kill up towards the top side of the map.
In that play, nobody saw it, but now the speed of the game is starting to ramp up as the Rift Shuttle has been used on the top side. A few plays picked up by PVB. Of course, the more members here, the stronger the tower will be, but still going to try to cut through it. Those first 3 plays quite easy, and rather just forced to back away in this trade.
Yeah, in the meantime, showC and Betty are working away at that turret. They will be the first ones to knock down a turret, grabbing that first brick for themselves, but despite the fact that Hanabi went down, this was not the most clean play here from Flash Wolves. You had to feel like running back into the Shroud with the calling active. He maybe could have just immediately flashed away, had enough health to survive any potential dive. Rather uses the teleport after Hanabi has already gone down instead of early to actually protect him. So there were certainly mistakes to criticize there from Flash Wolves. But either way, it is PVB getting first blood on Lucian, which is going to be really, really nice for them, and trading a tower back on the top side of the map.
And Flash Wolves actually secured the first tower blood down towards the bot side of the map, but let's have a look back at how this replay played out. So, Azelle, something you were talking about was Hanabi probably could have just flashed out of the situation. Perhaps he was a little bit afraid of the Brawl Melt, because notice how it went in the trajectory of his flash positioning. So perhaps he was sitting there anticipating the flash to come out, and then he was afraid of that Brawl Multi.
Yeah, it's hard to know if he would have been able to get out or not with the Brawl Mult and the calling still available. Either way, certainly had rather TP'd in a little bit early. You might be able to actually dissuade that dive or punish it. But it is a nice rotation there from Big Koro and Pallet. They have, to me, been the standout players for this PVB squad, and getting that early Blade of the Rune King for Big Koro is going to feel great.
And while Pallet and Big Koro did get that first blood towards the top side, Betty and showC secured the first tower blood towards the bot side and got all those plates only shared between 2 people. So a lot of gold is sitting on right now the bot lane of the Flash Wolves, so they're feeling pretty comfortable and pretty happy.
But while the bot lane's doing well, the top lane is in a difficult spot. Bilgewater, Cutlass, and the Seeker's Arm Guard, not where you want to see your Akali in the early game. Yes, the Seekers make sense, but usually you want that Gut Blade, you want that healing so you can be a consistent threat. Now Hanabi forced in defensive itemization very early on, but the good news is his team is starting to put a lot more pressure on the top side.
Yeah, and the Gunblade certainly is a little bit delayed, but should be okay.
Huge chunk of damage there. Zhuhao definitely going to try to find the kill here, but the body block on the Prey Seeker will stop anything from going down. showC now Zero stepping forward. That's going to be Betty taken out. Huge damage coming in from the Aatrox. The Xin Zhao just deleted. Now going to walk forward. The point and click. The double kill coming through, though. In the meantime, on the bottom side, we have to get the replay on that one, but it's kills across the map.
And this is what we were waiting for. Blood finally spills between the 2 teams as kills drop top and kills drop bot. Somehow, Big Koro was able to find a kill onto Hanabi, which had to be picked back up by Rather. While all that was going on, Zeros was committed to defending that top tower. He burnt the ultimate, he burnt the flash, he finds the execution onto Betty, and then it's just a matter of cleanup for the duo of Zhuhao and Zeros.
Rather now running to the mid lane, looking for the 1v1 exchange with Null, but a lot of sustained damage coming in from Null already, looking quite terrifying with just the Archangel staff.
Yeah, certainly sitting in a good position already. I think you are starting to see some of this additional farm, this additional power on the Rex side really paying dividends. Zero starting this off very, very well, landing the Infernal Chains on Betty. He is not able to flash out before getting pulled back in, and then Zero simply flashes in on top of Betty, finishing him off, and Boogie just getting crushed through there by Zhu Hao. showC, a nice flash over the wall to escape, but 2 quick kills there, and then down on the bottom side, Pallet and Big Koro look for a dive.
Yeah, so it wasn't actually the 1v1. I definitely misread the situation. It was a 2 versus 1. Hanabi with the level 10 using the Shroud, but it then just about runs out, and that's when PVB used this opportunity to set up the play. They have the Braum ultimate available. They chain CC the Akali, easily done. But what they don't realize is that Rather is making his way down, and he has more than enough damage to get the cleanup kills.
Yeah.
Protobelt and the passive just instantly deleted. Of course, not what you want to see. We know what it looks like when a Sylas takes over the game. The good news is there's not quite as many terrifying ults on the side of PVB for him to take away, but still a difficult position to be sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. Rather going to be the nice beneficiary of those 2 kills, and is at a pretty strong point in the game. Certainly, though, I think PVB pretty happy with their position. They're up 1.5K. They have been the ones feeling like they are now kind of speeding up the pace of the game a little bit, making some of these more proactive plays, trying to start to attack Flash Wolves here, who feel like they want to split the map, who don't really want to fight until that Gunblade is complete, I think, on the Akali. Because, as you said, you are kind of put a little bit behind the curve when you are going for that early defensive itemization.
And like you were mentioning just before, PVB playing much more aggressive. What we saw them be very successful with against IG on day 1, returning to a bit of that. Not quite as explosive. Doesn't look like Flash Wolves are quite as willing to match pace for pace here in the way that IG was. But PVB taking control, using that lane pressure, setting up for this Infernal on the bottom side that is just now spawning. The question is, will Flash Wolves try and take the fight?
Well, we can see that PVB do have priority bot, and they just cleared out the wave mid, so they have all 5 members here and in full control. A fight here could be risky.
TP coming in, Betty immediately going to get targeted out. They know how good his Callista is. It's not going to get the chance to push a single button. The fight quickly going to Flash Wolves with Hanabi, trying to find the execution on the backside. Rather, in the midst of everybody, a lot of AoE damage in the Sylas because he heal up not enough to survive there in the midst of 5 on the side of PVB. All 5 members left standing as 3 go down on the side of Flash Wolves.
We talked about how this could have been risky for Flash Wolves. It was Phong Buffalo that had the positional advantage, and all they had to do was choke Flash Wolves out as they force themselves into that narrow corridor. Beautifully done by Phong to identify the mistake, punish it, and find themselves 3 quick kills and an Infernal.
Yeah, that was just huge for Phong Buffalo. They are now so far ahead off of that, trying to attack into this corridor, as you called out. This is warded up by PVB. They're trying to walk through this into the Braum. They're going to get CC'd up, AoE'd out by both Zeros and Pallet. So much damage coming through here. Even Null able to start kind of cleaving through this team. Rather with a pretty nice flank, and the stolen Lucian ultimate does get a good amount of damage out. He's able to get a lot of AoE out in the middle of the team, but they've already lost the fight.
And the thing you got to remember is that neither team has a true front line, which means that outside of the supports, it's surprisingly easy to dive onto the back line, which means a lot of responsibility goes onto like the Braum and the Nautilus to actually keep the AD carry alive. But unfortunately, when you do that and you just walk into that funnel point, it's very easy for Zeros to just say, well, okay, I'll just dive onto your back line, and what do I have to be afraid of? And the moment he's on there, the rest of the team is very quick to follow.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It just felt like a little bit of an over kind of exertion there from Flash Wolves. It felt like they were a little bit desperate on the play. You know, you don't need to kind of really force for that. And if you are going to, you want to be a little bit better set up, because yes, the Infernal is important, but you know, Rather was not really in at the same time as the team.
Yep.
Everyone needs to be making that collapse at the same time, especially with this sort of composition where it is really kind of about that initial punch where you're diving in and you're overwhelming your opponents.
And now we can see that PVB are very comfortably in the lead. So Flash Wolves want to find an opportunity. They're going to have to play on the back foot for at least the next few minutes here. PVB leads across the board. The Lucian now ahead of the Callista, something we did not expect to be saying when you saw Betty's Callista locked in, but it has been a difficult game. While he may be able to fight the Lucian toe-to-toe, the Aatrox has had his number across all these fights.
I remember how we talked a lot about these compositions where they're actually very similar, 2 very strong side lanes, both scale pretty well. So a team that has the early advantage can then snowball very quickly, because the enemy solo laners cannot match the power that your solo laners have been able to build up.
Yeah, and you kind of just get stuck under your turret. There's not a lot of really good safe wave clear. Yes, Silas and Akali can wave clear, but you're putting yourself in a very dangerous position to actually move forward and do so, especially when there's a tremendous amount of CC on the other side. So it is for Flash Wolves kind of this difficult situation now where they are up against it.
Immediately going to force the stolen Aatrox ultimate out of Rather. He will back off, but this does mean the bot lane tower can be taken out. Shuhao will grab the solo gold there, it looks like. And we'll retreat there, rather half of it going over to Ryze. And things just looking very good, very comfortable for PVB now that they have this 4K lead.
Yeah, it certainly is. And this is a really big deal for PVB and the VCS region as well. Let's not forget Worlds last year. It was PVB that took down Flash Wolves that then forced them into the tiebreaker against G2 that ultimately cost them a spot moving on to the quarterfinals at Worlds. And for a long time, the VCS have wanted to establish themselves as one of the major regions. And while they are quite confidently in that 6th place spot, consistently beating out many of the other emerging regions, they really wanted to break into that top 5 position. And a big win against Flash Wolves today could begin that discussion.
And a kill on Hanabi potentially to kick it off. Hanabi needs to find a way out of this fight, but he runs face first into Null. Just barely going to miss on the ultimate there. Call using the second dash to escape. Feels like Null was caught a bit off guard that's the route Hanabi chose to escape.
Yeah, Pallet not quite able to connect, but still, it is PVB making these collapses on the side lanes. They're trying to extend their vision forward a little bit, trying to start getting control on their opponent's side of the jungle, and kind of using this to try to collapse to a side lane, push that solo laner back, assault the turret, and that's what they did a couple times on the bottom side to knock down one. Now looking like they are trying to head over towards this blue buff, but Flash Wolves are lying in wait.
Boogie has to be careful. Rather just going to have to back off. We'll be able to steal away the Rek'Sai ultimate, but we'll have to give up the blue buff. Another one donated over to Null. And check in on the advantages between lanes. You can see, a bit of a catch-up here coming from Xin Zhao. Has been able to grab over some of that jungle XP, but the Lucian's just getting further and further ahead. In top lane, the Aatrox still quite comfortable in the 1v1 matchup.
I mean, my biggest concern now for Flash Wolves is that their comp is very squishy. So while a lot of core itemization has come out with things like the Gunblade, the 2 items for Kalista, yes, this is very good. The fact is they have to work through 2 health bars on Aatrox, and they have to get through a Braum, which provides a lot of defensive utility. So I think they need to look for picks like this before they can really start trying for any fights later on.
And not quite enough burst damage to threaten Rather there, but Big Coral may be able to change that as he steps forward. And just the defensive utility you mentioned from Braum. Concussive blows onto Assassins just cuts them down across team fights.
Yeah, that chunk at least will send Zero's back, but this is another Infernal spawning, and it does feel like PVB are the ones establishing control over this Dragon area. We saw what happened last time when Flash Wolves tried to kind of push forward through the Braum and through a lot of these PV members to take the fight. And they're looking like they want to have it one more time, but Lucian and Aatrox are not actually with the team right now to punish as they walk in.
Yeah, and props to Phong Fu Buffalo. Notice how on the minimap they're keeping pushed up both the mid lane and the bot lane, which makes it very difficult for the Flash Wolves to actually get into a position to contest. Now Null gonna face Shake Rather.
Walking to the 1v1, have to respect the Rek'Sai ultimate, but so much shielding already coming in from the Ryze. Not afraid whatsoever. Zeros now gonna be on the hunt here. Hanabi waiting around. The Ryze is gonna come in as well. Darkened Blade, where's he going to go? Boogie now running, trying to make his way out of the team by Hanabi on the retreat as well. The Rek'Sai ultimate comes out. Null very much in danger here. Rather trying to find the kill, but he can't. Null outmaneuvering so far. Forced to use the stopwatch. Betty now chasing down the fight. He's still alive. Betty untouched on the backside. Have to respect the Aatrox, but Flash Wolves are taking over the fight. That's 2 shutdowns coming in.
Yeah, PVB just really over chasing there. They get punished as they are just walking into the meat grinder, the full Flash Wolf squad waiting outside of that tri-brush, punishing them so heavily. Big Koro just wandered into the middle of the team, gets hit by the Nautilus ult, and that's your strongest member pretty much. The Lucian was not able to contribute whatsoever. They're actually looking to try to take the Baron potentially here.
They do have the Kalista. This is going to go down very quickly. The Nautilus can just tank this one up for the time being.
Things going down. Aatrox just going to back off. Lucian potentially going to look to contest, but for now, Flash Wolves completely uncontested. The Kalista going to make this so incredibly easy, but the TP is coming in. Flash Wolves maybe looking to pick off members, maybe willing to commit to the full fight, but I don't know if they have enough time to make it into this pit. 3K and dropping the Baron should go to Flash Rules. Can he find the Miracle Stealer? No, Xin Zhao is going to take it down. The fight breaks out, but PvE are on the back foot, rather in trouble, but has the Aatrox ultimate available with the Resurrection coming out. showSi trying to make his way out to safety, but Betty now in trouble. Rek'Sai goes under, comes out, Betty goes down. Boogie next on the menu. Flash Rules are falling apart in the fight. The contest from PvP may just save the day. 2 members walking away with the Baron.
2 back-to-back fights where Flash Rules take the first one, and while PVB take the second, they end up losing the Baron. So, Azael, let's just focus in on what you were talking about, how Fongfu just over-chased. They just kind of ran through this choke point, over-committing onto Radha, and just keep your eyes on the positioning of Betty. He's going to come in through the top side of the lane, completely unthreatened, and freely building up stack after stack after stack. And he's just going to melt through this Fongfu lineup.
And look at Picoro here. He's just kind of wandering through the team, almost trying to retreat down through the lane. He wanders out of the Tribush into the lane, immediately gets ulted, has to stopwatch, then just flash back to where he came from. Certainly misplaying the fight, and while the Baron does get secured, PvB have respawned and do rejoin the fight.
And here we can see again, Betty continues to be untouched. Su Zhao finally dives onto the backline and does shut him down, but the damage has already been done. The Baron has been secured, and they walk away with 2 members. And now, when it was a game that was so heavily favored for Fongfu Buffalo, a game where they were in vast control for the majority of it, they've now just thrown it away off of a very simple mistake.
Yeah, I mean, still though, getting the 4 kills, the Dragon, the double Infernal advantage, they are still, 3-4K ahead in this game. So I do still think they are in a good position, but definitely, the Baron is one of the win conditions that PvP would have wanted to try to help close this one out, because likewise, they also don't have incredible sieging, and you are more reliant on things like the Baron buff to be able to really crack the base.
I think for Fongfu fans, the concerns start to come in the same way that they did in the Team Liquid series. Where they built up these leads, and then they would make these foolish mistakes that just gave away their advantages. And against a team like the Flash Rules, you can't make those mistakes. So hopefully moving forward, you're right. That mistake will not cost them the game. They're still in a great position, and they can still win, but they can't afford to keep doing this. Otherwise, the Flash Rules will come back.
And so much comes down to execution, because we saw in the Baron fight damage graphic how much Zeros was able to do when the members are grouped up like that. The meat grinder of the Aatrox alone is such a huge threat to the squishier members of this team, so execution feels like it gets more and more crucial as we get later. And yes, Akali has the damage threat, but if she gets caught out very quickly, can just get eliminated in the fight.
We've also seen what a Sylas can do when his items start to come through. Caps had a pop-off performance last game, and now he's sitting at 3-1-3 on Radha's Sylas, with the Zhonya's about to be completed, that level 16 mark about to come through, where you can start stealing multiple ultimates. Imagine the Braum ultimate into the Lucian ultimate, then ending the fight with the Zeros ultimate. Like, there's so much utility in this ultimate from Sylas that these fights become a lot harder to play out.
A reminder that both these teams are 0-2 right now. That yes, they're fighting each other, that yes, it is the LMS versus the BCS, but it is also MSI, and rising up in these standings is crucial. An 0-3 start is an absolutely brutal way to start the group stage.
Yeah, you really do want to start picking up these wins, try to claw your way back up those standings if you want to kind of be able to challenge for that top 4 and make it to Taipei for that knockout stage.
And the importance as well, PVB playing on their home soil, and Flash Rules, if they are able to make it to Taipei, would get the chance to play in front of their home crowd. So massive, massive for both of these guys.
Now, we can see the Dragon being set up for once again. A lot of action has been happening around these objectives, but before it, PVB are looking for a pick.
Gonna be a lot of tools to make it out to safety. Zeros chasing forward, but just a bit of damage laid down. Only gets the one sweet spot.
Again, though, it is PVB, kind of first ones to the scene, and they are going to look to turn.
Looking for the engage. Massive Braum ultimate. Lucian locked up in the backside, but immediately the coin's going to come out. Not going to connect to the Boogie, though. Able to block a little bit of the damage, but Pallet and Koro in the midst of the team. Betty, no chance left to survive. Desperate to make it out of this one. Koro going to take him down. Double kill for the Lucian, but he's caught in the meat grinder here. Zeros, though, going to look to fire back to Stolen. Sylas ultimate may not be enough to keep Rather alive. Zeros, though, desperate on the chase. The Akali invisible for now. showSi going to be the sacrificial Nautilus here in the exchange. Zeros chasing forward, but at the end of the day, just going to be a 2-for-3 exchange.
Yeah, well, it is the two PVB solo laners standing strong. They actually can't finish off a lot of these kills. They will now start up the Dragon, though, and should be able to grab it. So pretty even trade across the board. +1 kill for Flash Wolves, but it will be the Dragon going the way of PVB.
And it's such a crazy fight as well, because at the beginning of the game, something we talked a lot about was both teams have strong solo laners that are going to scale up to be strong split pushers, but neither of these teams want to do that. They just want to 5v5.
Fight.
And so you end up in this choke point where it's all about who can deal the most damage. And the thing is, Rather's in the thick of things, but he's just sustaining so much damage. Remember, he's picking up all these ultimates. He has the Aatrox to get the revive, but Null is left untouched. So it's just a matter of the damage dealers diving onto the AD carries, trying to shut them down. The solo lane is coming up big, and Hanabi buying time. Zeros buying time. Null buying time, and then ultimately they bought too much time, and no one ends up killing anyone.
You see across the fight, the Rise only continues to get more and more terrifying. Nollis had some monster performances across the play-in stage. This might be his first in the group stage where he really does get to pop off. The Rise, I think if you don't get the perfect setup, this champion is just horrifying to play against. It's not even an ult that Silas can steal to really match him.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're looking over at a squad that is 4 melee champions, they are going to be stacked up, and what he just did to that wave, he can look to do to a team fight. You want to be AoEing through that. Lucian, who has been the big target now for Flash Wolves, has a GA. That is going to make him much more difficult to take down. Zuhao has just finished his GA as well, so now you have to deal with triple revive when you're counting the Aatrox ultimate in as well. You're looking at this extremely strong Rise here too, and it does become very difficult, but critically Rather has hit level 16 and can start to get multiple ults out.
Boogie trying to fish for the fight. The TP has been forced out. If Flash will back away here, it will just be a good advantage to pick that one up uncontested. TP being used, a solid start, but Flash Wolves may continue to fish for the fight. showSi throws out the hook, will not connect.
Yeah, I mean, a neutral objective is up. It's time to group and fight. We've seen so far this game. Baron's on the map. Let's go, boys.
Why are we even running teleports? We don't need them. Oh, right, it's just to get back to the
Baron
faster. Yeah, of course.
When they die and respawn, they want to TP in. showSi, though, has to be careful. Arrow's throwing down a bit of damage over the wall, trying to hook out to safety. Will get pulled out by Betty there. Null now stepping forward, Rather going to try to disengage with the stolen Bramall. Buys a bit of time, and both sides are going to back off, but a lot of cooldowns burned on the side of Flash Wolves.
Yeah, Boogie was a bit out of position there, so Flash Wolves weren't confident committing to the fight, but now the re-engage coming out from...
Flash forward. Vyze tries to buy a bit of time as the Shroud off cooldown. Hanabi not going to use it quite yet. Immediately the re-engage. Boogie stepping in forward onto the front line, but he's just hitting the Braum. Not at all what you want. Big Koro backing off. Null backing up. They're not able to hit anything. They have to be careful. They're respecting the front line of Flash Wolves. They're respecting the dive potential. And it just means that they're absolutely getting destroyed. Big Koro and Null do not have the freedom to do any damage, and that means they're going to give up 2 for nothing.
Yeah, and Flash Wolves come out so heavily on top. Zeros was pushed out of the back of that fight. Pallet and Zuhao go down almost for free, and it's Flash Wolves now starting up the Baron with the Kalista here, looking to take control of this game.
And we've seen this one before. Zeros tries to step forward. Big Koro, though, now the one in trouble. Flash Wolves immediately turn. A beautiful play. The Rek'Sai coming through. Big Koro, the GA being burned. Null now running for his life. They're going to focus on the AD carry. They're going to take him down, and this time around, they're not looking to sacrifice anything for that Baron.
Beautiful stuff from the Flash Wolves, taking their time, not over-committing to the objective, and running the risk of this Rise, demolishing this team in the Baron pit. The rest of Phong, who have backed away, they realize they cannot secure this objective, and this will be the second Baron of the game, going over to Flash Wolves.
A back-and-forth game. The gold graph tells a story. The Baron was contested at first, but a beautiful turn-off from Flash Wolves. They will secure it. They will start to match up the gold and look to go toe-to-toe with PvP in this late game.
Yeah, PVB certainly starting to slip in this game. You can see that gold draft was all PvP the whole time. But again, they're committing to these fights, flashing forward. They do not have everyone with them. Zuhao was not with the squad. You know, Braum is getting focused down really before they're getting any damage out whatsoever. Big Koro playing it so far back, and then Zeros is looking for this flank up on the top side of your screen, but he gets pushed out, and the fight is over before he's really even able to join. So certainly something left to be desired in these team fights. The coordination has not really been on point in some of these fights where they're not all entering at the same time.
Yeah, and it's a situation that we've seen Phong Vu Buffalo in before, where they had this advantage. We saw it from the gold graph. They've maintained a big lead over Flash Wolves for the vast majority of this game, but unfortunately, they don't know how to convert that lead into a win, and they end up in this breakpoint with a lot of dancing, a lot of fighting, and Flash Wolves, they've just been steadily scaling up. They've been relying on the advantage that a Silas and an Akali can build once those items start to come through, and now, level 18 on Hanabi, level 17 on Rather. 3 items finished for both of them, 4 items done for the Kalista. Flash Wolves have just gotten stronger and stronger, and they're consistently outplaying PvB in the fights.
And with the power of this Baron, they have been able to match the gold lead. They will extend it. They will be able to find a gold advantage here in this game. Yes, the double in the Infernals, double Mountain and the Infernal, double Infernals and the Mountain for PvP are good for them overall, but you have to feel one more fight gets fumbled, then immediately Flash Wolves can just close the game.
Yeah, definitely the case, and it's been both teams opting into those fights. No one seems to want to play side lane. No one seems to want to try to split the map or look for any sort of other plays. It's all about the 5v5, and if PVB is mis-executing in those 5v5s with the Baron buff on the side of Flash Wolves, one more bad team fight can mean the end of the game potentially.
Now they're going to grab the Mountain Drake, and it feels like Flash Wolves know better than to take this fight. Of course, if they want to push for a man advantage, they could try here. Hanabi, though, with the TP up and available, would be there for the contest. And at this stage, the game just goes down far too quickly. Of course, Elder will be an objective to join the map quite shortly. 6 minutes away before the teams can contest it, but you have to feel like it's something that PVB need if they want to close out here.
So now the game slows down just a little bit. 12-12 in kills. The gold has finally equalized, but it really doesn't tell the story of this game where Phong has such firm control over like the first 20 minutes. They overcommit onto a single fight, and then this game ends up just being multiple fight after fight after fight. And now Flash Wolves with the Baron, they're the ones that look to set up to try and siege onto the enemy base, but they're not actually pressuring right now. The Baron is going to be running out in less than a minute, and we're kind of looking at the situation where we're probably going to be seeing another fight come up soon.
Yeah, we definitely could be. Around that Elder, around the next Baron, I think those certainly are going to be the critical objectives. Flash Wolves not trying to push too heavily with this Baron buff. We're happy to just back off with a minute and a half left and take that Mountain Dragon, reset on the map. They seem to be pretty content to play this game a little bit more slowly, and things have been going in their favor to their credit, so we'll see if they are able to be matched in these later stages.
And impressive that their team fighting prowess has allowed them to claw back in so many of these exchanges, because when we saw Betty put so far down on what we thought was a comfort pick in the Callista and has looked like one of these late game team fights, it's a really good sign for this Flash Wolves lineup overall moving forward as they face some of the perceived stronger reaches. That said, however, rather taking away the ultimate and setting up for a fight, you can see PVB having a lot more hesitation as we move further into the game. Not a ton of vision control on their side of the map.
Yeah, they are kind of getting corralled back into their base, and with Zeros up on the top side of the map, they wanted to play it a little bit more defensively. They do have those waves pushing for them now, and it looks like Zeros is going to continue to head back up to that top side of the map and will perhaps shove it in, but there is some kind of hesitation in what exactly he does want to do. So we'll see if they will just wait for the next objective and commit to another 5v5.
I feel like every fight that has happened, Azael has been around an objective. So it'd be weird if one happened with that one. And with the Baron spawning in about a minute and 45, Elder spawning in roughly 3 minutes, we're likely going to see those being the next priority. And we've talked a lot about it, but I kind of want to look at how these fights are going to be playing out. How do both these teams actually win these fights? Because what we've seen a lot of is Null and Zeros are the biggest damage dealers on the side of PvP. Yes, the Lucian is obviously a threat that you have to respect, but honestly, you're kind of looking at these two to be able to threaten someone like Betty and to be able to outplay Rather if they want to come out ahead of these fights. But for Flash Wolves, the biggest concern, I think, the biggest way in which they'll win is just get Rather into the thick of things and just have him absorb all this pressure so that he can steal away Zeros' ultimate to then bring the revival back, and he can use all this sustain to just soak up a lot of the damage.
Yeah, I think him alongside Boogie with his ultimate, he can actually, absorb a lot of pressure there. The Shroud from Hanabi is going to be very big and actually zoning out these carries. So, utilizing those three ultimates in combination with also throwing in the Nautilus, then pulling him out, with that Callista ultimate, they have no true front line, but they all have ways in which they can threaten the back line and make them respect these kind of areas of power, so to speak, for their side. It's something I want to point out really quickly, though, is the Duskblade actually on Zeros, which is such an aggressive build. You normally see things that are a little bit more defensive, things along the lines of the Death Stance. This is all about that initial hit. You come out of vision, you have that initial proc of damage along with Deathbringer Stance, and your first auto will do a tremendous amount of burst.
It's the Ghost Blade that we can sometimes see if you're going for the Lethal, which, often makes sense because it's that extra bit of mobility so that you can set up those flanks before, but you're right, it's just all about the damage.
Don't need to run fast if you can one-shot them.
Also, Betty has a built-in sweeper, so really it's a team
right.
sort of
Macro
macro decision. Vision control is the name of the game.
Basically a Sightstone in this game.
We'll clear out some of that vision now. But my biggest fear for the side of PvB at this stage is rather getting off multiple ultimates in a team fight. And when everyone has bursts on one side, not usually possible with long extended team fights where he is able to take the Aatrox ult. They're just very light.
Baron.
He can get it
Let's
for now.
go.
TP coming in, the fight. The arena has been laid down. Boogie, though, stepping on the backside, has to be careful. Immediately, Aatrox's ult is coming out. Pallet blocking so much damage to the backline. Unthreatened thus far. In goes Hanabi. He's trying to clear up some space. Goes Golden as well. Now it's been Null who's been cut out. The Rise has been isolated. The shutdown is massive. Immediately, Flash will start to take control of the fight. All eyes on Big Koro, but Bougie is buying time for the rest of his team. Pallet now running for the hills. Rather in trouble, but he has not gone down yet. The Rek'Sai ultimate stolen away. Most likely will be used to chase down Big Koro. He will fall in this fight if Rather wants to pursue. There it goes under, comes right back up. Easy kill for the side of Flash Wolves. And on the opposite side, PVB have fallen apart.
It ends up just being a front-to-back fight from both sides. It's hilarious how Radha steals away Zeros' ultimate. Both the Aatrox and the Sylas then use that ultimate, and then they both just die. And then they walk away from the fight, they then revive, but then it becomes this insane like brawl in the middle where all of the carries are trying to dive onto the backline, and it became a feud between can Big Koro stay alive or can Betty stay alive?
And I think Flash Wolves are honestly just doing a better job of actually consistently getting out damage. If you watch Big Koro and Null in this fight, it is mostly retreating. It is very little damage actually coming out of the Lucian, whereas Betty is consistently getting these auto attacks off. His team is doing a better job of actually rotating through the cooldowns and creating pressure. And now Flash Wolves stacking up those spears on the Elder Dragon. This is going to be theirs, no problem.
2 stacks on the Elder Dragon, huge combat buff moving forward, and the ping's already going down onto the Baron. They won 1 fight in that pit, they want to go for 1 more. Major cooldown still missing on the side of PVB. No flash, no heal for Big Koro, no flash for Pallet. It's going to be a tough fight to win.
I mean, how can you really contest if you're losing the 5v5 and now they have the Elder to boot? That just makes it so damn difficult, and you can really snowball the Elder very easily into this Baron. We'll see if PVB is going to be able to actually set anything up to turn.
We're going to see how a lot of immediate CC coming in. The GA is there, but it's not going to mean much. Zeros, will he try to go over the wall? Will they try to keep this fight going? Going to be the pick onto the jungler. Flash Wolves move right back into that pit.
And with the jungler gone, the risk of a smite steal has diminished as well. So PVB are just forced to play on the defensive. They're going to have to hold the line against an Elder Dragon, Baron-empowered Flash Wolves who have managed to claw their way back into the game.
I think it's going to be honestly really hard for them to do, given the way that things have been going. They have, not really shown any willingness to try to play the side lanes. It has been all about the 5v5, and Flash Wolves have won 3 to 4 straight 5v5s. Now have the 2 most powerful buffs in the game, which is just going to put them at such an advantage already. It's going to take something kind of special, I feel like, from PVB at this point, who have been struggling to get damage out from their carries in these 5v5s.
And props to Radha this game, who only having 1 death in the amount of crazy fights that we have seen, even though at a deficit, he's been very consistent in how he's been playing the Sylas, along with Betty, who after wasn't able to find an early game lead, actually struggled going down 0-2 early on, has been very impactful in these fights. And I feel like this duo of Radha and Betty have come up huge throughout this game and put Flash Wolves in this position.
In another game where we see Sylas be a hugely defining factor, but the fight breaks out in the mid lane. Rather going to use the ultimate Pallet. Goes Golden, will be able to take it out to safety. Null saving his teammate there. Well played for PVB to find the retreat, but Flash Wolves in absolute control in the mid lane.
Yeah, that was actually very nicely played. The Rise ultimate layered over the stopwatch from the Braum to actually pull him to safety. A good engage still, though, from Flash Wolves to get those cooldowns out, and they are pushing in multiple lanes here, utilizing that Baron buff. They have their top lane actually stacking up and looking like it's going to be pushing in as well. The jaws are kind of closing in here, it feels like, on PVB.
Sinking the bot wave and the mid wave, trying to find a break in the armor, trying to find an advantage over PVB in the fight. They already have Baron. The Elder Dragon buff will start to fade away, however, and they're struggling to push for anything more. We talked about the difficulties of sieging with both of these compositions. Flash Wolves is not quite confident enough to go for the full dive, and Zeros throwing down a bit of poke damage in the exchange.
Siege is slow and steady. Flash Wolves don't want to overcommit and dive, run the risk of giving the game back. Notice how they're waiting for that mid-wave to collapse in first, and then they're rotating between the two. I feel like this is where they should utilize the split push power that their composition have, threaten all 3 waves rather than just 2, but they're committed to grouping up. And they're going to look to set up this siege in the mid-tier tower now. It is slowly going down thanks to the cannon minion, and Betty's getting a couple hits off.
And you can see how hard it is for Aatrox to get damage down onto Betty. Such a tanky build, a lot of lifesteal coming in from the Callista. Mid lane breaks, that means the inhibitor will follow. All of PVB now forced to the bottom side just to defend 1 more. But breaking open that single inhibitor is going to give Flash Wolves a very large standing advantage for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, and it gives Flash Wolves the ability to threaten a flank. You can have Rather kind of escorting in this wave in the middle lane and threatening to come from behind and actually assault those back lines from the side of PVB. But Flash Wolves now with a Baron Cannon here. That turret already very, very low. It feels like PVB may have to make the call to go for some sort of a move, but I think Flash Wolves are just going to wait for the mid lane super minions to come in, for someone to respond to that from PVB, and then look to make a move.
And you can see how hard it is for PvP to even step forward and take down this empowered cannon minion. They're using everything they have, which includes a Rek'Sai Prey Seeker. All of the Q abilities between every champion on their team just to limit that one down, but the tower will break anyway, and Flash Wolves now barreling into the base, rather waiting on that flank, as you mentioned, Zale. Trying to find an option, see if this is going to be where PVB decide to engage. It only gets harder from here. Losing a second inhibitor would be disastrous. showC, though, the member that has been picked out, Betty trying to reset the fight. Fate's call, will they keep going? Flash Wolves just going to back away. They know they have the advantage. They don't want to risk anything here.
I feel like Flash Wolves, they've been playing the fights extremely well so far. They don't need to back off. Here we go.
Hook goes in. Not all can hit multiple members. Hanabi immediately into the backside. Goes invisible. Big Koro not able to fight comfortably. Hanabi taking down Pal, and Flash Wolves are just rolling over PVB. Absolute dominance. Hanabi put down in the early game, but getting his vengeance in this final fight. Flash Wolves now poised to end the game. Slow and controlled, they found a way back. The triple kill for the Akali. Zero's doing what he can to survive, but it will not matter. Flash Wolves find their first win.
Big pickup for the Flash Wolves, finally making their way onto the board. Things looked a little scary.